former Congressman Anthony Weiner. He is staying in New York. He's in the mayor's race, continuing on. Despite his latest sex scandal, he was sexting a young woman after resigning his congressional seat for his first sexting scandal. It's cases like this that you hear about, maybe the possibility of a sex addiction. But does it even exist? Is there such a thing? Dr. Bob Stinson is a psychologist with us today to discuss this. And certainly we're coming off a lot of high-profile cases. Tiger Woods, David Duchovny, Eric Benet, and now Anthony Weiner. So I'm sorry, spotlight's on you, Doc.
Yeah, is there anything to this?
You know, there really is not. There's been two blows to this idea that there's a sex addiction out there. One is most recently, the American Psychiatric Association refused to put it in the new Diagnostic and Statistical Manual. They said there's not enough scientific evidence for it. And then as recently as last week, there was a new study that came out of UCLA, I think you two are aware of that, where they looked at the brain in response to certain sexual images, and it doesn't fit the addiction models. The brain is not looking like an addiction. There may be a problem, and there are problems in the people you mentioned, but it's not an addiction.
I mean, because it sounds like, you know, it would be the perfect excuse for these guys. They get themselves in these situations and say, I can't physiologically help myself.
Well, and that is what the critics say is, hey, this is excuse making, and we know that there are true addictions, and people struggle with those addictions, and they need help, and there are models to treat them, but sex addiction is not fitting the addiction model.
So this would be someone who's just highly charged in that way, and what is perpetrating it? Is it ego? Is that what drives this?
Well, you know, of course there is a sex drive, and some people have more of a drive than others. Some people make better choices than others. Some people can delay gratification better than others. Some people are less impulsive than others. But if you look at some of the things that are going on today, you know, it's more accessible. It's more affordable because there's internet access. And you can do things more anonymously, or at least you think it's anonymous until it gets exposed. And I think those are the kinds of factors that are increasing the types of behaviors we're seeing in the media.
Do you think maybe some of this behavior, like you said, it's just that impulsivity, that maybe is what people can't control? Is there something to that, like acting on impulse? Yeah,
you know, I think that's part of it, but isn't it interesting that most of these people, they're not impulsively doing it in front of their spouses? So they're controlling their impulses when they need to. I think what's really going on is they're having a hard time delaying gratification. They're having a hard time kind of resisting temptation. So there are behavioral models that could be used to treat these people. They do need help. They do need perhaps some relationship therapy, but it's not going to fit an addictions model.
Well, because of what you just said, the delaying of the gratification and the impulse, I mean, a lot of that is addiction-based, right? I mean, that's tentatively what addiction is.
That is, but what we see in real addictions is we see a physiological dependence that gets developed. And when they don't get it, we see physiological responses in the brain and in the body system. And the studies that have been done so far, trying to study sex addictions, are saying we're not seeing it.
And I think one other telltale sign is if you have an alcohol addiction or a drug addiction or whatever the case, it's very much not a gender-specific thing. This seems to really be a pretty male issue.
The studies that have been done said not only is it a male issue, but it also seems to discriminate based on sexual orientation. And we wouldn't expect that if it was truly a brain or a physiological disorder.
All right, now you have talked about in the past before that there are some things when it comes to sex drive that can affect people's lives and their relationships. How so, and then what sort of treatment do people get?
Well, of course, we've seen them destroy their political careers. We've seen them destroy their marriages. We know people who have lost jobs. We know people who have become financially burdened. So we know that these kinds of problems are out there. But what the treatment probably needs to be is helping people understand, first, that they've got to take responsibility for their behaviors. Two, that they have choices in making their behaviors. And that's one of the concerns about an addictions model, is it may suggest you have no control over this. As it relates to their sexual behavior, they do have control. If we think about a pedophile, for example, nobody wants to say, hey, a pedophile is just uncontrolled, they're just going to do it. We can teach them that they need to control their behavior, they need to do other things. And so you're going to really look more at a behavioral model, behavior therapy.
It's almost kind of like distracting from that sort of thing that they're into. Like maybe in the case, and obviously just speculation, but with, you know, the former congressman here with Anthony Weiner, maybe it's sort of like a voyeuristic thing, or he enjoys, you know, with the pictures of himself and things like that?
Sure, I think there's an excitement to it. There's an energy around it. I think that you also have to look at the relationship he's in and say, well, what's going on there that he's going outside of that relationship? That's a problem that we need to look at. So there's probably some relationship issues that need to be addressed in these types of problems. But yeah, I think they enjoy the thrill. There's energy.
Or the thrill of like, hey, I want to do this and see if I don't get caught?
That's it.
I think that's a big part of it, right? When they do get caught, they seem to be able to modify their behavior.
Right, and I would say, you know, maybe it's good to get a distraction, but for a lot of men that's golf, and that didn't work for Tiger. So I don't think that's not the cure-all either, is it?
No, no, distraction is not going to be the cure-all, but controlling your behaviors, making responsible choices, those are the kinds of things that they can work on in behavior therapy.
Perfect. Well, there you go. I guess we took the lid off of it. So sorry, guys, no such thing. No such thing.